In 2016, Wells Fargo's own executives buried a secret that had been building for over a decade, that bank employees had opened more than 3.5 million fake accounts without customers ever asking for them. And while over 5,000 low-level workers lost their jobs, the man who ran the bank walked away with more than $100 million. He never spent a single night in jail. So why has almost no one heard the whole story? For most of America, Wells Fargo was the safe choice. The Stagecoach logo, the neighborhood branch, the bank your grandparents trusted, the one that survived the 2008 financial crisis looking almost untouched while its rivals burned. Under CEO John Stumpf, Wells Fargo was held up on magazine covers as the model of steady, boring, responsible banking. Stumpf himself was praised as a workhorse, a company man who'd climbed from teller to chief executive. That image was the entire brand, and it was a lie management had been managing for years. Here's the part they hid. Inside Wells Fargo, there was a sales program with a slogan, 8 is great. Every customer was supposed to walk out with 8 separate products, checking, savings, credit cards, whatever could be sold. Branch managers were handed quotas they couldn't hit honestly, so employees started opening accounts customers never requested, forging signatures, moving money without permission. Internal reports flagging this behavior as gaming date back to at least 2005, over a decade before the public ever heard the word scandal. Carrie Tallstedt, the executive who ran the community banking division, received those warnings directly. She stayed in her role. She kept collecting bonuses tied to the very numbers being faked. By the time regulators forced the truth into the open in September 2016, the cover-up had layers. Employees who refused to break the rules were fired or pushed out. Whistleblowers who called an internal ethics hotline said their complaints vanished. Meanwhile, executives kept telling investors that cross-selling success proved how much customers loved the bank. Wells Fargo paid $185 million in fines that September and framed it publicly as a story about a few thousand rogue employees. Not a system, not a strategy, just bad apples, they said. But that's not even the part they really didn't want out. The real number wasn't a few thousand fake accounts. Investigators eventually traced it to over 3.5 million unauthorized accounts and credit cards opened between 2002 and 2016. Real customers were charged real overdraft fees on money they didn't know existed. Some had their credit scores damaged. Some had cars repossessed after being wrongly charged for auto insurance they never asked for, a separate scheme buried inside the same culture. Wells Fargo eventually fired over 5,000 employees, almost all of them tellers and low-level bankers making an hourly wage, terrified of missing quota. Not one senior executive was fired in that first wave. Stumpf resigned under pressure a month after the story broke, but he didn't leave empty-handed. He forfeited $41 million in unvested stock, out of well over $130 million he'd already banked in prior years, running the very division that was lying to the public. The Federal Reserve eventually froze Wells Fargo's ability to grow past its 2017 asset size, a punishment that hit the company's balance sheet, not the man who built the culture that caused it. And here's the twist almost nobody talks about. Carrie Tallstedt, the executive who watched the warnings pile up and kept cashing checks tied to falsified growth, didn't just survive those years untouched. She profited from the exact fraud she was supposed to stop, retiring in 2016 with a compensation package worth tens of millions before regulators clawed part of it back. The person closest to the truth had the most to gain from staying quiet. So why did no one really pay? Stumpf was banned from banking for life and personally fined $17.5 million by regulators in 2020, a fraction of what he'd earned. Tallstedt pleaded guilty in 2023 to a single charge of obstructing a bank examination. Her sentence, probation. No prison time, despite years of internal warnings crossing her desk. Remember that decade-long secret from the opening, the memos, the hotline complaints, the quotas nobody could hit honestly. Every one of those documents existed inside the company the entire time. The system worked exactly as designed. Absorb the fine, protect the executives, let the tellers take the fall. Wells Fargo is still one of the largest banks in the country. The regulators who find it still oversee it. The sales quota culture that built the fraud has been dismantled in name, but the incentive structure that rewards growth over scrutiny hasn't gone anywhere in American banking. So the real question isn't what happened at Wells Fargo. It's whether the next version of this is happening right now, inside a bank you trust completely.